Hello, everyone out there in podcast world. Hope you're having a great day. You're listening to or watching the Service Business Mastery Podcast. I'm your host, Tersh. Today, we have Danielle Putnam with, well, I can't just say with one company. She's with a lot of things. And 40 under 40, the new flat rate. What are you, president?
Correct. President of the new flat rate.
President of New Flat Rate. Women in HVACR. We're going to talk about, well, you know how our podcasts go. We're going to dive in some rabbit holes, but and it's great because every time I have a conversation with Danielle, it can go anywhere because she's like myself and has lots of interests in lots of different things. But one of the things that I'm super excited to talk about is the women in HVACR and bringing more women into the trade. As you know, if you listen to the show, we've had other people on that talk a little bit about it, but we haven't had a female come on the show and actually talk about it, especially from her perspective. And I think that's really cool because Danielle also has a huge history of like her family being in the trades, and then not just with the new flat rate, but having the HVAC company, and it's just, I don't know. I'm a fanboy for sure. But with that being said, Danielle, would you mind introducing yourself and tell us a little bit about you and your background?
Oh, awesome. Well, hey, thanks for that introduction, Tersh. I'm really glad to be here. My name again was Danielle Putnam, and I grew up in the trades. My dad was a contractor, so I'm a product of the trades, really. When I was 7 years old, it was a summer with no air conditioner in my family. My mom, I guess, her station wagon. There was no air conditioner. It didn't work, and we're in Georgia, so it was very, very hot. But my mom had said to my dad, hey, if you start your own service business, the kids and I will help you. So at 7 years old, we spent that summer passing out flyers door to door saying, hey, my dad just started his own, at that time it was an electrical service business, and here's a flyer. So that's, kind of my first introduction, but I loved growing up with my dad being a contractor. He later had an HVAC and plumbing company as well. So I was always working. One of the value-added benefits of, contracting that I love is it's so family focused. There's always the owner's kids running around the shop. So whether we're helping with inventory, we're organizing things in the back, we're answering the phone up front, we're, drawing on the marker board, you're always around. And I love that because when I went off to college later in life, I was the only one of my friends that had any work experience at all, because I'd grown up working in an office, running parts, doing different things, and had a much more burst education at that time. Oh, yeah. So I guess I just grew up in the trades. In high school, I was homeschooled because I didn't like sitting in school for 8 hours a day. Who had time for that? I felt like I didn't. And I wanted to make some money so I could buy a car. So I chose to work at my dad's business. I was his dispatcher through high school.
Oh, very cool. That's awesome.
Because I wanted money.
Yeah. So how did you get into the new flat rate? And then how did you transition over, or how are you involved with the women in HVACR?
Great question. After high school, I went off to Bible school for 4 years out in Texas, and then I finished college online. I moved out west. I worked for an HVAC company in Oregon, doing marketing for a while. And then I went down and worked and helped start up a tech company in California in Orange County. I was out there for 5.5 years, and we went public in 2007. So I was able to pitch to a bunch of stockbrokers. One of the greatest moments from that time was I was on the trading floor of the New York City Stock Exchange one day, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm like Matthew McConaughey in a cool movie. I've really made it. I remember thinking, this is so awesome. But my dad and I were best friends, and he was a contractor, and we talked all the time, and he had great ideas, and he'd always call me, and I'd say, Dad, you need to do something with your ideas. You need to do something. And he'd say, well, I can't. I need your help. Well, at this time, the company I was working for out in California was going through a large merger. We were being bought out. And I was in my, I guess mid to late 20s. And at the time, career-wise, I felt, I really have made it. This is great for me. This is going to be really successful. And so I wanted to move forward with the merger. But so many of us in the trades, again, family business is really prevalent. When your dad calls and needs your help, what do you do? I knew I would regret it if I didn't work with him during that season. And if I failed, so what? Because failure wasn't, the risk wasn't too high at the moment because I wasn't married yet and I didn't have children. I would have had children and been married and settled in California, that would have been different. So I felt like I could afford the risk in that season of life, and I could bounce back if it didn't work. So I flew back to Georgia, left my car and everything out in California.
Wow.
And we, in my dad's garage, well, he told me, Tersh, I'll have to tell you this. He says, hey, if you come help me, you can have 50%. Awesome. 50% of nothing is great, right?
Right.
And he says, I'll pay you $75,000. I thought, well, there's no money in the business because it hasn't been started. So I know that you can't pay me $75,000 because it's not there, and you're not going to mortgage your house for it. Right. So as a daughter, that you're going to do those things for no money anyway. Yeah. So that year I came back to Georgia, and in my dad's garage, we spent 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. I blew through all my savings, all my credit cards, maxed them all out, and we started building the new flat rate. That was in 2011. But he'd given me 50%, so I gave myself the title. I was the president from day one, and we were going to build this company. Tersh, by the end of that year, at beginning of 2012, I know I might be talking a little too fast.
No, you're good.
Okay. At 2012, we actually had a viable product that we'd been tested in the marketplace. We'd beta tested in 8 states, and we had customers, and we were making some revenue, some income was coming in, and we were learning and course correcting along the way. So in 2012, I was able to pay myself back all the savings and all the credit card debt, and then we were able to kind of start taking a salary and move forward and be a real business.
Hey, that's a pretty quick ROI there. I mean, pretty much 1 year. That's really good. Kudos to y'all for continuing on. Even whenever the times were tough, and I'm sure that there were some times whenever you're like, "Is this really worth this?"
Yeah, and peers. Peers are always going to say,
"Yeah,
that's a stupid idea. What are you doing?" And they didn't understand. They didn't understand what's the company, because if you're not in contracting. Mm-hmm. The new flat rate, what? You do what? They didn't understand, well, it's pricing for contractors. And so trying to get your friends to understand and support you, you really just have to say, hey, I'm going to do this anyway. Please still be my friend and love me.
Especially going from what you considered you've reached success out in California to coming back and spending the money that you've saved and all this stuff. I can imagine having the conversation with your friends, and I mean, I have had the conversation with friends. You're starting another business, like you finally made it where you're at. Like, why are you're gonna bootstrap something else? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Why are you gonna stress yourself out again? Yeah, totally. I've had that conversation myself.
Well, and that's the heart of the entrepreneur too. What do you say back to them?
Right, exactly. Like, if you knew, I mean, if you felt that feeling, you'd understand completely. And whenever you talk to someone like you and I have a conversation, then it's like, you don't have to explain it. I get it. Mm-hmm. Totally.
Yes. Yeah.
So how did you get into the Women of HVACR, and then what is your kind of role there with that organization?
In 2011, when we were still starting New Flat Rate, we went to a Comfort Tech trade show, and I remember walking through and seeing a room full of women with a sign that said Women in HVACR, and I thought, well, I'm a woman in HVACR. Why didn't they invite me? Well, they didn't, know to invite me, and I didn't know them. And so the next year in 2012, I made it a point to find out who the organization was and to get invited to their conference. And they had their annual conference in conjunction with Comfort Tech at the time. So in 2012, I went to the meeting, and there was probably 40, maybe 50 women there. It was still a small group, and they didn't have their own standalone conferences. And so wherever Comfort Tech was every year, they would go and they would spend a day or half a day, getting together, bringing in speakers and having like a mini conference in conjunction with. So in 2012, I attended, and they passed out a survey afterwards, said, how would you like to be involved? And I'd like to be on the board. I didn't really know much about it, but sounded like a good idea. Yeah. And I will ever be thankful that they asked me to be on the board. So in 2013, I joined the board, and didn't know a lot of people in the industry. And I'm so thankful to Women in HVACR. And I want to say this to any females that might be listening. Women in HVACR, my best friends from the industry are in that group. It's a very non-cliquish, tight-knit group of women who want to help and support each other. and very diverse in, manufacturing, distributing, contracting, technicians, installers, very diverse, but we're all there to help each other. So the relationships and connections that you can make, well, it's really grown as far as what it can offer you.
Mhm.
So in 2013, being on the board, we had our monthly board calls, and it took me a while to kind of get up to speed. I later became the treasurer, and that was actually a lot of work. It was a lot of work in my side time. I spent a lot of nights, trying to figure out the books, because we started to really grow. I was involved in marketing with them, and just really neat to watch, as the board would grow and our audience grew. We had, gosh, I don't remember how many members at that time, but now today we have over 600 members, and our annual conference, last year, our live annual conference had 200 attendees. Last week, because of COVID-19, we had our annual conference virtually,
Oh,
and it actually was very successful. We had 220 attendees.
wow.
We have a very strong, if I can say this, a cult following,
Yeah.
and when we have regional events and things, our members are so supportive and always want to be there. But let's see, after treasurer, I became vice president, and then last year in 2019, I was the Women in HVACR president, and this year I'm currently the immediate past president, and in January I roll off the board. And it will be bittersweet. I've been involved with them for 7 years, a long
Wow.
time, and it's just been such a great journey. I owe them so much gratitude for growth and relationships.
Yeah, it's totally like you can tell, like at the HR Expo, anybody who's ever attended, I'm sure you've seen the Women of HVAC, or at least you speak at all different things. Like whenever you go through the list of speakers, you'll see, presented by Women of HVACR, which is really awesome. That was
Mm-hmm.
always cool. I try to check those out as much as possible. But the downside to AHR is there is so much of
So
everything.
many.
Yeah, you're trying to catch everything, and I've seen your dad speak, and it's just you just go and go and go as fast as you can. But one of the things, like this past year, we met up with y'all after hours for your after hours event, and it was so awesome to see, because like you said, it was ladies from the tech space,
Mm-hmm.
managers, service managers, GMs, owners,
Right?
technicians, and it was all, and like you said, it wasn't cliquish. It was, you could just see the interaction with everybody,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody was there for the support of everyone. And I really thought that was amazing. And if you're a woman in the industry, I really think that it's, I believe that it's a no-brainer for you to sign
Mm-hmm.
up. Not only that, it is dirt stinking cheap to sign
Right?
up. Like, it doesn't even make sense not to sign up for it,
Yeah.
really. And
$99 a year. It's like,
yeah,
come
yeah,
on.
totally. And it's, um, how would you say the networking, and how has that helped you out in the industry? Because one of the things, like even with this podcast, people will ask, well, what's your ROI on the podcast? Well, it's honestly, it's a ROR, return on
Mm-hmm.
relationships. I'm
Good.
getting relationships out of this
Mm-hmm.
podcast. How would you say the networking aspect of women in HVACR has helped you, and versus just a local networking type
Mm-hmm.
relationships?
Mm. Yeah, interesting question. The it was definitely over time, not overnight,
Okay.
because the relationships in the group go really deep. We get to know each other, and it's not salesy. Hey, I have this product, you have that product, let's do something together.
Mhm.
We're women, and we want to get to know each other and be relational. And so you get a lot of that. But over time, I'm finding a lot of my new business partners, vendor relationships, business partners are coming out of that. And over time, as you really get to know what other women in the group do, and ideas come and flow, some of these opportunities, again, over time, are looking really, really, really good. And of course, we refer each other,
Mhm.
and so you can get leads and things that way. And job connection wise, if anybody's going through a job shift, I've seen a lot of women in the group leave a company and go to another company within the group. It's been really good for that.
Yep.
If you're not an owner, and you're just looking to continue to grow up in your career, it's a really good group for networking for that.
Who was it? I just seen someone. I seen her at the event, and she was working through that transition, and it was so funny because she was like, "Well, I'm not with them anymore. I'm over here with them," and I'm like, "Oh, that's so awesome!" But I mean, it was very cordial, and uh, a- the thing about once you've built those super deep relationships, it's
Mm-hmm.
really whenever they offer you a product, they're not pitching something to you because it's
Mm-hmm.
truly like, "Hey, look, I care deeply for you. We have a deep relationship.
Yes.
Let's I have this product. I wouldn't be offering it to you if I didn't believe that you could use it,
Mm-hmm.
because you have that deep relationship. They're not going to hawk something on you that is snake oil because they have to face you at the next board
Yeah.
meeting. They have to face you at the
Yeah.
next conference or whatever. So
Yeah.
I think that those types of relationships are, even though it's all over the country, because you're
Mm-hmm.
worldwide. I mean,
Well, yeah. I mean, international. I
basically.
mean, a lot of U.S. and Canada.
But so you have to. I mean, you're all over the place, but you're still super connected. And and it's still with LinkedIn and Facebook and even with Zoom. You're able to still remotely connect. How often do y'all have a conference? Is it once a year where y'all actually get together, everybody?
Our annual conference where we bring in keynote speakers and breakout sessions and things
Yeah.
like that and have major networking events is once a year. It's in the fall. We also have at with AHR Expo every spring or January, February, whenever they have it, we
Mhm.
have a networking event that's usually very large. And like you said, we have a lot of educational sessions that we sponsor.
Mhm.
So we have ways to get together. We also have meet and greets at Hardy every year,
Oh, okay.
which is coming up in December. And
Yeah.
so that's it's kind of like a half day conference show. And then throughout the year, when it makes sense, we'll try to do regional meetups. Like, hey, we're going to meet over at this college. Anybody in, for example, Houston, Texas, that's in the group can come and get together. So we'll do regional meetups when we can. We do quite a few different trade shows.
Okay. So do you ever, is there ever a situation where, what's the best way to put it? So like if you have a young lady who wants to get into the trades, maybe more on the technical side where you have some sort of guidance, say, okay, so here's a typical career path or something to that. I don't even know how that
Hmm.
plays out, but do you have anything that would kind of happen in that scenario?
Really, Tersh, what we need is a process. Hey, you're interested? Here is the process for how to do that. So now that you brought that up, we need to write it. Well, our mentorship program does help, though. So our
Oh,
mentorship
okay.
program, it's like Match.com, but it's free for members. So women in HVACR members can go on there and say, hey, you know what? I'm trying to grow in my career. I need a mentor. I want somebody who's done it, been there, can help, me navigate along the way. And so you sign up and you put your interest, what you're trying to do, your goals and your availability, and we match you on the back end through our algorithms with a mentor. And we're always looking for more mentors and we're always looking for more mentees. We have over 100 in the program right now, and
Hmm,
it's an
cool.
annual program. And so matching each other up, that helps us to help bring in whether you're new into the industry or maybe you're just trying to grow. That's one way that we help. Our scholarship program, we just awarded 7 young girls a $2,000 scholarship apiece
Oh, wow.
for being in the trades. And they're currently in school. And we just awarded those at our conference last week. So we definitely try with that. We have an ambassador program where we're trying to go into the schools and we have a curriculum to talk about the trades, to bring more people into the trades and to tell people about the opportunities available. I think, Trish, that's a big problem for all of us, not just women.
Yeah.
Everybody says, oh, there's a technician shortage or there's a hiring gap. It's such a, well, what are you doing about it? I mean, can we quit
Hmm.
talking about it and just do something about it?
Yep.
So we created the ambassador program to say, let's just get into the schools and invite people. I mean, you got to tell them, hey, the trades is a great option. Here, come in and join us. People need to be invited.
Yep.
My husband, he loves to get an invite, and he's always like, nobody ever invites us to dinner. And it's a lost art. People don't invite people to do things. And same with coming into a new career path. If you said, hey, the trades is a great place to be, why don't you come in and join us? Oh, well, I hadn't thought of it. I didn't know.
Yeah, whenever I came out of high school, out of college, I had no idea about the trades. I was completely ignorant. My dad told me, "Hey, look, his best friend Jeff, he's an electrician. Like, you should do that." And I'm like, "Electrician? Like, what does that
Hmm.
even entail?" And it's kind of just got gears rolling. And it was probably about a year later, yeah, maybe even a little less, that I left what I was doing and wound up in HVAC. And from the time that my dad had the conversation about being in the trades, and I just never had considered it. I just always
Mhm.
knew I was going to be a mechanical engineer. I just like that
Mhm.
was in school. That was always pushed towards, go to Georgia Tech, go to college, get your engineering degree, and who knew that I'd be in HVAC
Mhm.
and just enjoying it a lot more. And it's
Mm.
not just turning wrenches with your hands. You have the business side of it
Mhm.
also. So it's really awesome. So with that with that being said, we've been talking a lot about women in HVACR, and we value that a lot. Tell me a little bit about, as we kind of wrap up here a little bit, um, new flat rate. And I know that y'all offer a lot. It's not just menu pricing. It's not just flat rate pricing. You offer more stuff than that. What is it else that y'all offer with the new flat rate?
New flat rate is our core product. It's the menu pricing system. So we help contractors to get their pricing. We do it for them so that they have a done for you pricing system to get out in the field with options. So customers buy more when you give them options.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we never want to forget the ship that brought us here. So that is our main flagship product. But along the way, we learned that people needed training as well. And so we started going out on site. We do on site coaching. We go to different contractors all over the US and Canada. We're in different locations every other week. We have trainers all over the US. And going in there, and whether we're training on process development, out in the field, craftsmanship, all sorts of things we offer in those. We do a lot of ride-alongs. And then also, Tersh, we have something called Freedom Builders University. And we haven't really promoted this to the public too much, but we're about to start, because Freedom Builders University started because we essentially stumbled upon becoming a process development company,
Mm.
recognizing the need for processes in all small businesses, but especially the trades, because typically the trades are, somebody that's entrepreneurial minded, maybe a technician that was in a truck. Hey, I've got a mind for business. I'm going to start my own business. And then they start growing their business, and there's nothing natural about being a CEO. There's nothing natural about being an owner, a president, a manager. And you have to learn over time. So of course we all make a lot of mistakes along the way, don't we? It's
Oh
difficult.
yeah.
And we found that people don't have processes. And if they do, they might say, this is the way we do it. Okay, is it written up? Can you show me where that is? Well, no, of course it's not written up, because who has a written process book in their company, right?
Right.
Especially if you're an entrepreneur and you started your business and you're just trying to make it, which is awesome.
It's so funny because like you'll even if you even when you're starting out, so maybe this isn't true for everybody, but I feel like this is the trend that I see most often, is that you you need processes and
Mhm.
procedures written down. Like everybody knows they need the process and procedure written down, even if they don't understand like the best way to enforce the process and procedure. Even if they know that there's a binder that maybe should be on a shelf somewhere with the process, if I'm not here tomorrow, you can pick up this binder.
Yeah,
But I feel like most everybody's like, well, we're too small, and then once
right?
we get bigger, I'll write it all down. Like
Hmm.
tomorrow, I'll write it all down.
Hmm.
Tomorrow, I'll do this. And then they're like, well, and then you have the other argument. We don't really have processes. Well, do you do the same thing? Do you do one thing the same way every time you do it? You have a process. You
Hmm.
might not quote unquote call it a process, but it's a process. Like, do you answer the
Hmm.
phone the same way? Do you ring the doorbell the same way? Like, you have processes built in.
Yeah.
You need to get them on a piece of paper. And you can tell when you have a conversation with somebody who is process driven,
Hmm.
because like earlier you said, we don't have that, we need to create a new process. Like
Hmm.
instantly you had that, like, okay, we're going to create a process. And you can tell when somebody's process driven. And it's also, I find that when you look at successful companies that like turn around quick, that's like from 2011 2012, you had that quick turnaround, as far as revenue goes. You're going to see somebody who's process driven and
Hmm.
is repeatable, and you can bring new people in as you scale. Your processes are already there. And sometimes, like, I like to warn people of this. Like, a lot of us see like the shiny object syndrome. Like, we all have it as entrepreneurs, and we're like,
Yes.
we want to scale, we want to scale, we want to scale. But see, some of the companies that scale the fastest have taken the first 5 years to nail in those processes, like have really honed the process. So whenever they start hiring 4 or 5 service experts a month, the process is already there, and it's not
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, we're gonna throw these service experts and then we're gonna figure the processes out. So I think that is amazing. The fact that you're going to go around and teach these people how to create the processes that are already up in their heads. I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
processes are there. You're going to teach
Mm-hmm.
them how to put the pen to paper. Um,
Yeah, you
that's
got to get it out and get it down so that you can pass it on and delegate.
exactly.
And so with Freedom Builders University, that's what we do. We run a lot of processes together. We've got a core group of members in there. We do a lot of masterminding, and it's just a really cool program.
That is really amazing. How would you? So I kind of know the answer to this, but for the listeners, uh, one maybe process that you could kind of present to us about possibly hiring or something like that, what you would do
Oh,
for onboarding.
hey, well, thank you for that. What we've found, and I'm talking to a lot of contractors, hey, we need technicians, we need technicians. Okay, well, where is the ad that you're going to post and who posts that ad?
Oh, I like
Right?
that.
That's a very simple process that needs to be written, because if it's always the owner, well, then you're bogging yourself down, right? But if, hey, this is the ad and this person, or it doesn't have to be somebody's name, this position, the person in this position in this seat, they post the ad and they follow up with the applicants, they do the pre-screening, and they schedule the interviews with the owner. That right there is a process that can be written down and will save you tremendous amounts of time, right?
Yeah,
But how
yeah.
often do we know that we need to hire somebody and we don't want to? And Airtime 500 says that the owner needs to be recruiting 33% of their time, but none of us do it. Instead, we always want to be putting out fires. I need somebody today. And Tersh, here's a point I really want to drive home. If I need somebody today, as an entrepreneur, what am I likely to do?
If I need somebody today, probably maybe tell somebody that I needed them today, or put out a hiring ad today, maybe.
Right?
I,
And really, let me help clarify a little bit. What I'm going for is, as an entrepreneur, we're going to make an emotional decision and high
oh yeah.
likelihood of hiring the wrong person.
Oh, I'm gonna hire somebody who fogs a mirror.
Totally, you are. That's right. Because you want them to solve your pain today. And
Yeah.
so, because I saw this as a need, I was like, you know what? Too many people are hiring the wrong people because we have a pain point that we're trying to fix by just throwing somebody at it. I wrote up a 7 pages of processes. It's just a hiring pack. And I'd love to give it to anybody for free who is interested. And
Yeah.
it's like, hey, here's an example of a job ad. Here's a process for who's going to post it. Here's a process for what the interview needs to look like and how to interview. For example, 1 phone interview and 2 on-site video or interviews. Never hire at the first interview because you're going to make an emotional decision.
Yep.
We, me, people like us, maybe possibly you too,
Oh yeah.
we hire people that we like because we like people. We're like, oh, we like you, we're going to hire you. But a problem with that, and stop me if I'm talking too long,
No, you're
when
good.
it comes to diversity and inclusion, profitability wise for your business, if you diversify, your profitability is proven to go up. But sameness begets sameness. It's easy for us to hire people like us, people that we like. We're like, oh, they're going to get along well with us. But that doesn't mean their core DNA, if they get along well with us, that's probably not the person to do the task that you need them to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have these hiring processes so that we can interview multiple times. These are the questions. This is how you do it. This is what happens on the interview. And then here's the follow-up to make sure we don't make an emotional decision, just to try to help get the right person in the right seat so we can scale our business.
Yeah, I love that you said that and you brought that up, because that's where I've made the biggest mistakes, is hiring someone who is a yes man, quote unquote, yes man. And it's like, oh yeah, they're just like me. They like everything that I like. We're great. So, but the problem is that I'm hiring them to do a job that I'm not doing or I don't want to do. Like,
That's right.
so if they're exactly like me, they don't want to do it either. Their whole goal is to get out of that position. So yeah, it's definitely, and once I went to the multiple interview just type process, it really brought to light, like, there were times whenever I'd finished the first interview and it was, all right, let's hire them. I mean,
Course.
Julie was like, let's hire them. They're good. Let's go. And then you sit and ponder on it for a week or whatever. And then you're like, they are good. They're better than a mirror fogger, but they have some quirks about it. So like, maybe even if I offer them the job, we need to offer them at a little bit less of a rate, and then they can prove to me that they're worth what they are. Instead of the other day, I would have just given them exactly what they asked for whenever they interviewed. And I love that. And another thing that we've tried doing, we haven't done in the past since March, is we would have a meal. So our very last interview, it would be, we would go out to eat together with their family if possible.
Wow.
And the biggest thing with that was to watch their interaction with the waiter and the waitresses, and just the people who they would not benefit at all with the relationship.
Right.
So if they're going to treat the waiter or waitress like crap, then we know, hey, look, to the people that don't, there's no benefit, then they're here to show us a good time and stuff, but not really their personalities kind of showing through. And then also how they interact with the family too, because we're real family driven here, but that was always our last interview. And but we haven't been able to do that for the past little bit, but we're going to try and get back on that as soon as.
Great idea. I've never heard anybody do that before.
Yeah, I think I got that from Dave Ramsey actually, but I remember listening to some podcast of his or something. But yeah, whenever when we changed that up, we actually avoided hiring probably 4 or 5 people, and they're like, you took them to dinner and spent $100 on dinner and then didn't hire them? Like, yeah. Just watch the relationship, even the interaction they had with their kids, where it was just like, oof, like that, during a stressful time, you kind of reacted really harshly. And so we have stressful times in the air conditioning industry.
Oh man, but $100 for dinner is so much cheaper than hiring the wrong person, isn't it?
It is so much. So yeah, but cool. So how do we get that process that you have? Where do we need to go?
Well, just shoot me an email.
Okay.
Danielle@menupricing.com and request the 7-page hiring pack that you heard on Tersh's podcast. Or you can text me at 949-400-6958. It's been really fun. I appreciate the questions, the conversations. Love the trades. Love inviting more people into the trades.
Totally.
The more the merrier. There's room for them. We all need people, and let's just keep telling people to come join us.
Absolutely. Thank you again for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And for anybody that's watching or listening, don't forget Danielle at menupricing.com to reach out and learn more about Danielle on all the social medias. We're all over everything, both of us. LinkedIn. Also, don't forget to connect with Women in HVACR and the new flat rate. With that being said, thank you again for watching or listening to this episode of the Service Business Mastery Podcast. It's a podcast focused on service business owners, managers, and technicians who are considering becoming business owners themselves. Until we talk again next week, have a wonderful week and be good.